Welcome to this edition of the Mindful March Conference speaker interviews for the dog experience. Today, I'm going to be interviewing the wonderful Debbie Betts. Debbie is a qualified dog trainer from Norfolk who specializes in helping dogs who have pain and discomfort access veterinary services in order to help improve their behavior. As we know, lots of reactive dogs can suffer with pain. In fact, there's quite a glaring statistic that you'll hear about during this interview that might blow your minds with the amount of dogs that have pain. Debbie's dog training journey started when she picked up Sabre, who was a dog from a local rescue center. He took her on a roller coaster of a journey that resulted in 2015 with him biting her. To ensure that he got the help that he needed, Debbie began to study to become a dog trainer and now is fully qualified with the Institute of Modern Dog Trainers, has become a dynamic dog practitioner, and is also in training to become a Galen myotherapist. Debbie's conversation with me was so interesting because it really highlighted just how many changes we can make to ensure our dogs are safe from physical discomfort, but also how deep physical discomfort can go in perhaps influencing our dog's behavior, which you'll find out a little bit more about soon. As a reminder for this as well, by the way, for the duration of the conference, Debbie has very kindly offered to give you 10% off a dynamic dog assessment, which you can find more information about as this interview goes on. To access that, you will need a code, and that code will be sent out in an email at the end of this talk. On the day of this talk as it goes live. So provided you're accessing this in the month of March, you will be able to access that 10% off a dynamic dog assessment. So without further ado, here is my wonderful interview with the ace, fantastic Debbie Betts. Debbie, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. After the tech problems, but we're here.
We are here. That's the main thing. That is it. So let's dive straight in, because when we're thinking, and then the entire purpose of this conference really is to discuss with caregivers their dogs, their reactive dogs, their anxious dogs. And I think that one of the key things that caregivers can put real emphasis on, of course, is behavior, right? And the behavior of their dogs. But what we don't think about a lot is how different elements of our dogs' lives can impact on their behavior, just like certain things in our lives can impact on ours, right? And so one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you, Debbie, of course, is I know that you have a really big emphasis and focus on pain. Obviously, you're a pain and behavior specialist, right? And so what I think would be really good, just to kind of set the table almost for people who are listening in general, it's a very big topic, I know, but in general, why is pain so relevant, or might be so relevant, to caregivers who have a reactive or anxious dog?
Well, when you have a reactive dog, going to the vet for a pain check is one of the very first things you should be doing. But then that's a whole huge topic anyway, because 80% of pain is not found in the consulting room.
Okay, interesting.
So we've got, what do we do? What are we looking at? So we've got our acute pain, if you stub your toe, oh my God, it hurts.
Yeah.
But 3 months down the line, it's not going to be hurting anymore, unless, of course, you've broken your toe and then you get other conditions like arthritis setting in. Yeah. But chronic pain can be something that's been going on for years and years and years. And you end up coping mechanisms. Dogs are fantastic at coping, and this is where I come in to look at that behavior surrounding what's going on. For example, a dog that I'm sort of working with at the moment, I think a lot of it is gut issues, but I'm not a vet, so obviously I cannot diagnose. But it's just when we have those consultations and they're telling me about how their dog always likes to lie with the head raised and the head back, always quite bitey and growly after food, quite a lot of sloppy diarrhea, excuse me if you're eating, but diarrhea and sickness as well. So it's all pointing towards the gut. So That's quite a simple one to think about, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
You know, if something's coming out both ends, then we're going to think it's something to do with the digestive system. It's those more subtle signs. For example, your dog is a little bit hesitant to get in the back of the vehicle to go for their walk, that they're normally, yeah, come on, mum, let's go. But they're a little bit hesitant to have their harness on. They're not sleeping, don't seem to be sleeping as well. You know, they might be just keep getting up and changing position, digging up their bed, which obviously we do know that dogs do. But if your dog has never done that in the 5-6 years you've had them, and then they start doing something, we've got to look at it with new eyes. Why are they doing this? What else is happening in their lives? What else could it be? Is there other things that are going to go alongside that?
Okay.
So
No,
I think I went off at a bit of a tangent there.
you were beautiful, because I think there's so much to unpack there, isn't it, really? Because I think that in general, and we will absolutely come on to signs of pain and discomfort in dogs, because you illustrated some really good ones in terms of gut health, you illustrated some really good ones in terms of behavioral changes, right? Like dogs normally being happy going on a walk, jumping in the car, jumping out the car, and then we get that hesitation. But I want to kind of circle back a little bit to what you were talking about, to that fact about 80% of pain isn't diagnosed in the consultation room. And I think that this is something that, and again, obviously we're very pro vets, we're not remotely at all saying anything bad about vets. I work with a lot of vets, as I know you do, and vets are fantastic. But one of the concerns that a lot of my caregivers have, and I'm sure you get the same, Debbie, is that they will go to the vets and they will say, you know, I think that there might be a pain problem here, right? I think my dog might be with some discomfort. And the vet will check the dog over. And what our caregivers might not realize is that because our dog's behavior is going to be so vastly different in the veterinary practice versus out and about day to day, the vet might not pick up these signs. And as you've illustrated, some of these signs are really subtle. So if a caregiver came to you and they said, Debbie, I want to get my dog vet checked, but I'm a little bit concerned that the vet isn't going to be able to see perhaps the problem that I'm dealing with. What are some of the tips that you might give to that caregiver to kind of help them showcase why there might be pain?
Well, the first thing I would suggest is they have a dynamic dog assessment with me because it's about there you go, throw it in there, because I'm looking at the behavior. Yep. And the vet report that I will be generating will be, part of it is in the owner's words. What are they seeing in their words? And then through all of the footage that I get, through the photos and the videos, what am I seeing that is consistent? Yeah, and then that is all in veterinary terminology, because it's like you say, oh, there's something not quite right with your dog, off you pop to the vets for a vet check. It's all very vague. Yeah. It's vague for us, vague for the caregivers, vague for the vets. Like, what am I actually going to be looking for? What am I checking? So what I do is just package it all up in a video and sort of photographs and the written as well, to actually help the vet find that needle in the haystack, and they can concentrate their further imaging, diagnostics, etc., on this area that is, here it is, or there it is. This is where we need to concentrate on. Yeah. 1,000%. But what people can do is they can start keeping like a daily diary.
Okay.
I would advocate that for anybody. If your dog, like we said before about not wanting to get into the vehicle, when did this start? How old is your dog? Sleeping. Have they decided they don't really want to come upstairs anymore? They sort of might have a little whine and cry at the bottom of the stairs, but don't really want to go up. Have they changed how they're walking? Are they preferring to walk on the grass rather than the pavement, or are they preferring to walk on the pavement rather than the grass? It's all very dependent on that dog and what might be going on with them. But take videos. Vets love videos, and they're actually finding it quite helpful for them that we're empowering caregivers to actually take videos of their dog walking, trotting. We don't particularly want to see the dogs running around off lead, because you can't do a true gait analysis when a dog is off the lead. There's only a couple of things that we look for off lead, and that just goes into the vet report.
Sure.
Yeah, we don't, and potentially a little video, but videos are really helpful from the side, from the back, from the front, just to say, look, I don't think my dog is walking that well, seems to be waddling.
Sure.
You know, there is obviously proper terminology for that, but as a caregiver, you just know my dog is waddling. You know, she's got a wet nappy on, is quite a common caregiver's term, wet nappy walk.
Sure.
So take a video, yeah, take a video of that, because that is so helpful for your vet. Because as you come in through the car park, maybe into the waiting room, if you've got a reactive dog, you normally hang about outside, in through the back door and straight into a really small consulting room, slippy floors. The dog's going to be like, adrenaline, natural pain reliever. So of course, you know, the vet isn't going to be able to see what I can see and what the caregiver can see in the dog's natural day-to-day living.
Makes sense. So just so people are kind of in the loop then, because there'll be some people listening who will have never heard of a dynamic dog assessment. What is a dynamic dog assessment? And because I think a lot of people have heard of things like massage therapists and physiotherapists. What's the difference between a dynamic dog practitioner and a physiotherapist? Walk me through that.
Okay, so a physiotherapist, any of your massage therapists, hydrotherapists, etc., they all work, or should work, via a diagnosis from the vet.
Okay.
Because if you don't know what is wrong with that dog and you start saying, well, let's do these sort of exercises and let's put them in the pool when really they need treadmill, you can do a lot of damage. So you can only work on a diagnosis, or you should only work on a diagnosis. A dynamic dog practitioner, there is no diagnosis. I am one of the wheels to help that caregiver help their dog forward to get that diagnosis, because otherwise things can be all a bit blurry. I mean, I had a dog, he's 9, he was going to be, do you mind me telling you a little case study?
No, please do, that'll be so much people. Absolutely.
Yeah, I use him a lot because he's got part of my heart. Up in Yorkshire, so a million miles away from Norfolk where I am. A 9-year-old collie, he was so aggressive that the family couldn't manage him, and he spent a majority of his time crated because there was children. You know what collies are like, they like to control that movement, which is quite dangerous. Yeah. And so they were going to have him put to sleep at the vet's. The vet talked to a local rescue and then talked to the owners, and they surrendered him to the rescue. A volunteer there fell in love and brought him home, but he was incredibly reactive to humans and dogs and vehicles. You know, one of these over the top reactivity dogs. And sorry, just dropped my phone. And couldn't touch him, couldn't touch him. So I believe she got him when he was about 6, so she's had him about 3 years. And when I was doing the dynamic dog practitioner course, which is developed by a brilliant lady called Gemma Harvey, and it's accredited with the UK Rural Skills, and we're trying to get it a bit more qualified, you know, so we can actually, people can use their insurance to pay for us. Basically, that's going to be the next step in that journey with that. So I didn't actually have to see him. We did it Zoom. You know, the consultation is probably almost 2 hours, because I'm going into the nitty gritty day to day. The moment he wakes his eye, you know, opens his eyes, the full 24 hours, you know, when he's going to the toilet, does he move around? Does he sort of find a spot, squat, and then get up and move again? That's all really important information. And then there's a series of videos, like the walking and trotting videos, but they're not just the only videos. It's other videos of him eating, of him having a wee, walking around the house, you know, going up and down stairs if safe to do so. So many other videos and photos. So there's certain photo positions that I need. But if she was to say to me, he doesn't sit, you know, he stopped sitting about 2 years ago. then that is important information. I'm not going to ask for a sit just for the sake of a photograph, because it wouldn't be a natural sit.
No.
You know, when you've got a tree, the dog's going to sit there all pretty. But if your dog chooses not to sit, it was one thing that I found with my dog 3 years ago. He stopped sitting to the vets, and diagnosed his arthritis. And so her vet, long story short, but her vet looked at the report, bearing in mind he had to be so heavily drugged to be able to go to the vets once a year for his vaccinations, that they kept him in the car. They'd already sent the report through to the vet. They walked into the consulting room. The vet's got it all open, watching the video, reading the report. I said, yes, there's something going on with him. So for their licensing laws, they had to actually see him. So all they did was just get him out of the car and walk him across the car park. And she prescribed him some pain medication there and then. He's since had x-rays. He's got spondylosis, which is arthritis of the spine, where there's like bone spurs that grow down off the vertebrae as well. It can be really incredibly painful. And also in his stifle, which the knees at the back. It's got arthritis in there as well. So no wonder he was very, very reactive. So yes, so that helped that dog, and it wasn't too late. But because he'd been living with this pain, and he's more and more layers of coping, more and more keep away, you know, he was virtually a dog you could not touch. And it's just because he was just so insular, like protecting himself. It's all he could do. Yeah. So I get very passionate about it.
Oh, that's good. That's good, right? And I think you should be, because so often we will look at working with our dogs, especially our dogs with additional needs, from a purely behavioral lens, right? We see that they're anxious, we see that they're fizzy, we see that they are struggling, and we try and approach it in a very logical way, to be fair, of we'll make them feel better, we'll make them feel good. But you can't, when there is the potential of pain and discomfort, that's an impossible thing to deal with. As you were talking about, and I'm so sorry, what was the name of this dog?
She doesn't mind. He's called Moss.
Moss, perfect. Just so I know who I'm talking about. What I liked, and so please correct me if I'm wrong, because I kind of had the picture painted of what dynamic dog assessment was while you were talking about Moss, right? So it's kind of, it can be done online. It can be something that people can do from the kind of comfort of the home. And it sounds like effectively it's a really big data collection consultation, where you're getting the caregivers to gather as much data as possible with all these different positions, all these different photos, all these different videos, so that you can then provide not only, I'm sure, some behavioral help in that context, but also then have this really neat package, which, as you say, can then be sent to the vets to help provide that context and kind of remove the mist and fog that I think a lot of vets have when they are trying to look at pain, right? Is that a fair assessment of what a dynamic dog assessment is?
Yeah, perfectly. I mean, I do see people in person if they're local to me, but the furthest person I've done is Scotland. You know, so I'm not going to zoom up to Scotland just have a 2-hour chat with somebody. So doing it over Zoom, and it is perfect for these dogs that are nervous, because if I'm there in their house, they're not going to be themselves.
Sure.
Yeah. So we want to see the dog in their most natural state, and they do show their caregivers, because they are the trusted ones. So they're more likely to show how they're feeling. It's just recognizing that they're actually feeling like that. This is why they're doing this, because they're protecting that area of their body. Because quite often as well, you know, the dogs that you get and they're all over you and you stroke them and they're turning around, and you think it was because they're really enjoying it and they want more and they want more. Potentially it could be because they're trying to divert where you were touching. So it's just something as subtle as that. I mean, obviously you do get the dogs that are like wiggly worms and they just want to love you, but then on the other hand, you have got the dogs who are just saying, no, I'm going to move because I don't want you to concentrate on that area.
That makes sense.
And obviously pain does refer as well, you know, so it might be in their hip, but it can travel. You know, those nerve pathways, as you know, it can just go anywhere in the body. And if a dog is painful in the back end, where is it going to try and offload all of that weight forward? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a Malamute. There you go. There you can see him in the
Best.
picture. And people said to me a few years ago, wow, what a lion's mane he's got.
Mm.
Big, big rough.
Yeah.
That wasn't just his coat growing like that. That's because he's pushed a lot more weight forward to
Mm.
take to try and offload weight from his hind end. So
Okay.
it's all getting big, and you see some dogs that have those massive triceps on their front legs like
Huge
this.
kind of legs, yeah.
Could be breed, always have to take breed and conformation
Into account.
in, as well. But sometimes you get these dogs that got huge, great big triceps and little skinny back ends.
Yeah,
So
sure.
they're trying to push all that weight off what's painful.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because limping, when a dog is limping, they've been hiding that for a long time. And they're quite high up on the pain scale.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
unless it's like an acute
Yeah.
like this.
On something.
But arthritis, for example, is progressive, it's degenerative, it does not get better. All you can do is manage those symptoms, and the management gets higher as you go through.
Hmm.
And I don't want to upset anybody, but it is a real hard fact that it is the highest reason why dogs are put to sleep by choice because of arthritis.
Sure.
Because when it's end stage arthritis, I mean, my dog I can talk about it because, it's happening to me at the moment. I don't know if my dog's got 6 months. I
Hmm.
doubt he's got 6 years, but he might have 18 months. But it's always here
Yeah.
because it's about quality of life, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, first of all, I'm so sorry to hear that about your dog. And I think it's so important, isn't it, that we realize that there are so many signs of pain that we might not kind of notice. And we've spoken a lot so far today about people who have realized their dogs are in pain, right? And have sought that veterinary help and perhaps sought you out. But what are some of the more subtler, smaller signs of pain that if people didn't know to look for them, that they wouldn't notice them, that might indicate, there's something going on with my dog here, maybe? What's some of those?
It's all very individual to the dog.
Of course.
Very individual to the dog. Yeah. A couple of examples can be just turning the head away when you go to pick the lead up. As subtle as that, because you have to think about what the lead signifies.
Sure.
It
Okay.
signifies being clipped on, or is it the precursor towards the harness coming on?
Sure.
And it means that you've got to go out.
Hmm.
Barking at, I mean, we all know that some dogs, they just go mad when there's fireworks, thunderstorms, which can be down to the pressure as well. But, a car backfiring, a motorbike, car tires on a wet road, that was my dog's biggest hate. Because if you're in discomfort anywhere in your body and something makes you jump, you tense even more, and it makes that discomfort feel even worse.
Sure.
So then, because dogs, they've, as you know, very poor to generalize, poor generalizers.
Yeah.
So every noise they're going to tense. And
Mm.
then they want that noise to go away. So then you get the barking and the lunging because you're going to make me hurt. So I need to make you go away first before you make me hurt. Or they're just in a constant state of tension.
Yeah.
And reactive dogs, they hold a lot of tension in their hindquarters anyway.
Mm.
When I first got Sabre, I mean, he's 12, he'll be 13 in November, and I got him in 2014, so he was very nearly 3 when I got him. And I did everything that people should do. But I didn't do things that people should do when they go to get a dog, is to research the breed. What are their traits? What are their habits? And I thought, oh, pretty fluffy dog.
Yeah.
Off I trotted to Wales, brought him home, 5 hours, and the tail, Malamutes and Huskies, they're up
Yeah.
like that, over their back, nice big wavy things. Well, his tail was stuck to his back, and it was like a lump of concrete. Couldn't lift it off his back.
Right.
And I just thought, well, I didn't think I was totally ignorant then.
Yeah.
And I just thought, oh, this breed don't wag their tails. I mean, how stupid was that? And it wasn't until 2 months later that when I came home, I got a tiny little twitch, and that was a light bulb. And that's 10 years ago. That's what got started me on the dog training behavior journey. And now it is up, because I've dealt with his reactivity. Well, I can't say I've dealt with it, but I've put strategies in place to help him deal with it himself.
Sure.
But a lot of it was pain-based.
Sure.
Chronic pancreatitis. So it's where, and there's two different types of pancreatitis. You've got one where digestive enzymes are being released when there's nothing to digest.
Okay.
And there's one where there's not enough digestive enzymes to be being released to digest the food. And Sabre's was the one that there wasn't anything to digest, so they turned around and started trying to digest his pancreas.
Right. Okay.
So his behavior was, after food, after he ate, he was a complete nightmare. Nightmare. Yeah. Anyway, I've rambled on again. Did you got another question?
Perfect. You're really good, because I think that it's important, isn't it, that people understand both the personal stake that you have in stuff like this, but also the kind of anecdotes are really, really useful. And yeah, absolutely right. I think as well, when people think about those more subtle signs, it can be stuff like coat changes, can't it? It can be stuff like different patterns in the fur. It can be, as you say, kind of far more developed muscles in one area than the others. It can be tension. It can be as well, I know that some dogs are really hesitant to, say, walk along certain surfaces, aren't they? Like certain slippery flooring or things like that. One point, and we will circle back to that, I think, but one thing that you said earlier that I thought was really interesting was something about adrenaline, right? And adrenaline being kind of a pain reliever. And one of the things that I find interesting, and that so many caregivers will say to me, is they'll take a look at their dog, and their dog is bouncy, and their dog is boisterous, and their dog is full of life and full of beans. And they'll say, but I don't understand how there could be discomfort. I mean, he runs all the time, he plays all the time, he bounces all the time. And I think that we as a culture, when we think about pain, we think about that kind of really, especially with our animals, we think of that, I don't want to say stereotypical, but we think about a dog limping, a quiet dog, a reserved dog. But talk to me a little bit about those dogs that are certainly fizzier because they have pain. What are some of the signs there, and what would you say to people who have a dog like that?
Right, there's a wonderful lady called Sarah Fisher. I'm sure you've heard of Sarah Fisher from Animal Centered Education, ACE.
Yes.
ACE free work.
Yeah.
She said many years ago, busy dog, busy brain. Because all the time they're busy doing stuff, then they're distracted from what's really going on. Okay. It's no different when we feel poorly. When do we feel the worst? At night, because there's nothing else to distract our bodies, ourselves, from what is going on, which is why you'll get dogs that will just be busy from the time they open their eyes. They will fight going to sleep. And also they will search for those things that make them feel good.
Yeah.
The serotonin, the dopamine, all of those feel goods, which is, I was with a dog the other day who was incredibly anxious, noise sensitive as well. Her coping mechanism is the ball, because when she gets overwhelmed, she wants the ball being thrown, because that's what makes her feel good, because of that release of, the feel good stuff. Like when I find chocolate in the cupboard, it makes you feel good. And so the ball to her was a bar of hidden chocolate. And when I don't feel good, I want to go for what makes me feel good. So it's looking at those sort of things as well. I mean, obviously we can go the other way, and we can get the obsessive dogs, who just don't walk, they just bounce around backwards, waiting for you, the ball. So they're not sniffing, they're not walking, they're not smelling the roses or anything like that. But repeat your question again.
Fine. So my question just in general was, what would you say to people who have dogs that are displaying so many fizzy and excitable behaviors? Because the perception of that would certainly be, wouldn't it, that, well, how can my dog be in pain? But I think you've answered it, right? I think you've said that it's that it's the fact that they keep their mind and bodies busy, because the more that they're doing, they have to think about it, the more the adrenaline surging, things like that. It reminds me, and you shared an anecdote about one of the dogs you've worked with, so I will do the same. It reminds me of a dog I worked with a few years ago. I still see her now for nose work classes, and she's probably now the calmest, I'll use air quotes for it, Labrador. Such a sweet girl. But when I first met her, she'd moved down from Gloucestershire down to Dorset, where I'm based, and her family, her caregivers, had not bought any new clothes, because every time they used to take her out, she used to jump up and mouth and tear at their clothing. The first time that I met her, we played pretty much constantly. Well, as in, she was given stuff to do because she couldn't cope with anything else. And her family was so confused. Her caregivers were confused. Anyway, we went down the veterinary and the pain route, and it turned out that she had, and we never quite diagnosed the specific issue, but effectively, one of her back legs was, I think, 6 centimeters thicker in muscle than the other. And so we went for hydro, we went for physio, and alongside obviously some training work as well. She's the most placid thing, and now she comes to and does stooging for me and stuff as well. So
Brilliant.
It can be so easy, I think, to fall into the trap of pain equaling quiet, pain equaling even anxious, kind of stereotypy. But actually, so many dogs who are over the top with their fizziness, so many dogs that you look at and go, you don't know how to settle, you don't know how to sleep. They can be perhaps even bigger proponents of pain than some of the quieter ones. And one thing that I kind of want, and we've touched on it a decent amount, but I think it's kind of really important to say to people, is that I'm sure you have this as well. Whenever you mention discomfort or pain to people, Debbie, I'm sure some of them panic, because when they think of discomfort or pain, they go, oh my God, we're talking severe, I don't know, hip dysplasia or a cruciate injury or something like that. And actually, that's not necessarily the case, because people see the severity of behavior, so barking and lunging and snarling, and they compare that to a severe injury. And obviously, we're not saying that an injury lesser than a severe one isn't valid or bad, as we'll discuss. But people tend to make that jump and that leap, and that's categorically not true, is it? One doesn't necessarily lead to the...
No, we have to be so careful how the subject is approached and about pain and discomfort, which is why I like to use the word discomfort rather than pain, because it's like a gentle lead up to get you sort of thinking, oh, so, and try and put a human analogy on it. When you don't feel good, you just want to be left alone, don't you? But you've got the grandkids round and they're screaming and now they're arguing, and you just leave me alone. I'm going to go into another room. Think of your dog like that as well. They just can't cope with anything else. But one thing I did want to say, when we look at the dog as a whole package, there's 4 jigsaws pieces that we want to put in there. One of them is confirmation, basically how they came out of the dog factory for that breed.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. So a Chihuahua's confirmation is going to be very different to a Dachshund, for example, or a German Shepherd. So confirmation, how they're built, their posture, so how they hold themselves within that confirmation. Yeah. And then we have behavior. So when we talk about behavior is everything that a dog does. And quite often we fall in that trap as well, as thinking of behavior as always the behavior we don't want. But everything is behavior. So let's say good behavior as well as the behavior we don't particularly like, but see if we can do something about it. And then you said it earlier as well, Jack, the coat disturbances, which are so overlooked, but really, really important. Really important, because a coat, if we're touching and grooming our dogs, we're going to be aware of any lumps, bumps. We're going to be aware if they suddenly shy away from one side or the other, or I don't want my paws being touched today, thank you very much. Or we just suddenly notice that the coat in one area might just be gone the other way.
Yes.
It might look dull. It might be, scurfy as well, which can be coming from inside, as in yeast, or it can be skin, but it can, if there's dandruff, if you like, it can also be the stress that's come through the skin, so the dandruff. But it can also be that there's coat disturbance. It's normally in that there's muscle tension underneath.
Okay.
Yeah, because our bodies, as every sort of living creature within reason, is covered in this really tiny fine netting called fascia. And if you can imagine fascia like clean film, before you roll it out and it's nice and smooth and straight, and you only have to do that and it goes like this. So you imagine that underneath your skin like that. So it's going to be really, really tight. So there's another sore bit, Sabre, he goes to physio. Well, he used to go to physio, but he can't manage the journey. So that's another thing to look at. How does your dog travel in the vehicle? Do they stand up the whole way? Do they sit? Do they just lie down? Are they constantly pacing? Are they whining? It's not always about car sickness or motion sickness. It's not always about that visual stimulation. It could be that it's uncomfortable and they can't, every time they go over Joel, eat like this the whole time. So the vehicle tolerance, the travel intolerance, it lowers. So say his physio is 50 minutes away, he can't really do more than sort of 10 minutes in the vehicle. Before he's uncomfortable. Exercise intolerance, if you start looking at your dog, decide which way do you want to go, they might just turn around and walk back home. Or you get the dogs that are pulling on the lead, which I think is most trainers' inquiry. My dog pulls on the lead. Some of it is the fact that they just want to get there. They want, just want to get there as quick as possible. Some of them it could be because they're trying to offload weight from a painful joint as quickly as possible. So the quicker they go, the less painful it is. And some, and when we talk about surfaces, that's why it's such a huge subject. When we talk about surfaces, some dogs prefer to walk on a path because it's supportive. Some dogs don't like walking on a path because it's concussive. So everything, things aren't taken in isolation. It's everything. And then we look at consistency. Because if I asked you to send me, have you got a dog, Jack? I think you have, haven't you?
I've got little Kevin. Yeah.
So if you gave me 20 photographs of him. If you sent me 20 photographs of him sitting, and on only one of those photographs, he's doing what we call a sloppy sit. That is not consistent. Unless I could see something on the stand photos, on the down photos, and how he's moving, then I might use that photo. But if you sent me 20 photos and 12 of them he's sitting to one side, then that is consistent. So we always look for consistency, never one thing in isolation, because it's about building up that big picture that helps the vet, that helps your dog. That's the end thing. It's all about helping your dog to get the help that they need.
That makes complete sense. And I think what I'd like, actually, Debbie, I'd like to play a game.
Really? God, no, don't put me on the spot.
No, you'll be fine. Honestly, you'll be fine. So here's the game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name a behavioral problem or a behavioral concern, and all I want you to do is say in a very generic way whether there something might contribute from a pain perspective to that. So for example, a minute ago, you just hit on loose lead walking or pulling on leads. Most people would look at that and they would go, well, it's just a dog wanting to get somewhere quickly. But you've just given a really beautiful illustration. So, and of course, there will be certain things I'll say that you might turn around and go, don't think pain's related, which is fab. So noise sensitivity, so barking at noises. Could it have a pain element?
80% of dogs with noise sensitivities have some degree of pain, discomfort.
Oh, there you go.
80%. I think it's up to about 85% now.
Which is
isn't it? That's a huge percentage.
Oh, massive. Okay, cool. So noise sensitivity we can tick as a yes. What about something like resource guarding? So
sorry, you've broken up a little bit.
Oh, have I? Okay, hang on. What about something like resource guarding? So guarding food or toys?
Shall I give you an example?
Yes, please.
I had a dog that was resource guarding food bowl, resource guarding the mat that the food bowl was on. Then it went into the kitchen. Then it went into the whole downstairs.
Right, they were guarding all of that.
It just, they noticed it first. It was the food bowl, and then it went to the mat that the food bowl was on, then the kitchen, then the whole downstairs. Before it wasn't actually me they called in, just before my time, but they called somebody in. Obviously vet check, brilliant. Turned out this dog also ate stones.
Right.
And it turned out to have a malformed spine. So it was a coping mechanism for that dog because it was in pain.
Yeah.
And, I can't say how dogs think. We know how they learn. And we like to think that we know how they think, but it's still a huge, huge subject. And I haven't got a PhD.
Sure. No, I get you though. So again, right, I think that's an important point, that guarding of things can be, I think you touched on it actually a little while ago, that certain dogs will guard parts of their body, won't they? And so on that note then, about stuff like not wanting to put the harness on or not wanting to be groomed, pain related, right? Could be.
It could be, but there are some dogs that are very, very sensitive.
Okay.
There might not be any pain at all. They might just be quite sensitive skinned.
Okay.
And they can't bear any weight on them at all. Even a collar sometimes is just too much for them.
No, that makes sense. And that's good to know, isn't it? Because I think that a common thing that caregivers do come across is kind of harness aversion or aversion to things like that. So knowing that it might not be pain, their dogs might just be sensitive. Something to keep in mind that it might be, right? But good to know.
Yeah, it depends on what the harness actually predicts, because we only tend to put a harness on when they're going to the vets or they're going out for a walk. So think about what it predicts. But what I would always suggest to people is to set a video up and film your dog while you're putting the harness on, because you miss all those subtle signs. You miss the whale eye, where they show the whites of the eyes. You miss the mouth closing. You miss the little look back. You miss the puffer cheeks. You miss the little hold of the breath or the stillness. You miss all that when you're in the moment and you're doing it.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, my dog always will go very, very still when I'm doing the right hand side of his harness up, because he's got a big, I've got to pronounce it right, lymphoma. It's just a fatty lump he's got across his rib cage there, and I'm trying to get a longer back piece for his harness so it goes up behind it. But he will always hold his breath. And the thing is, when you hold your breath, what happens to your rib cage? It goes out. So I've got it as loose as possible on that side. And when he's relaxed a bit, he always has a little walk around. But it's not just watching what your dogs are doing while you're doing it, it's watching them before and watching them after as well. So filming it is brilliant, and then watch it back in slow motion.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Final little,
I finished talking. Sorry,
no,
I don't know if I froze or you froze then.
That's all right. So final question then, final thing. What about something like dogs that are out walking and another dog runs up to them and they seem fine initially, the dog seems fine initially, but then the dog that's been run up to after a certain period of time turns and snarls and lunges or tells that dog to go away, because that could have a pain component as well, right? A discomfort component.
It can be, and it can obviously start, as we know, as soon as they see another dog in the distance, and most of it's about protecting themselves. But you do get some dogs that think, yeah, I'm going to be okay with this dog, and then obviously if they're sniffing or they're having a little play, something might just twinge and they think, oh no, I've had enough now, go away. Yeah, but have to take everything into context. It doesn't mean just because your dog doesn't want to play with a dog that it means they're in pain. We've got to be really, really careful. I don't want people to go off and think, oh God, my dog's in pain and discomfort.
No, absolutely not.
You know, it's like us. We don't want to play, you know, say hello or cuddle everybody we meet on the street. Some people might be quite happy to go, good morning, or some people have a 5-minute chat. Dogs are very much like that as well.
No, 1000%. Yeah, it's just about being aware sometimes, isn't it? Because there'll be caregivers who wouldn't have made the or even considered the possibility that their dog starting to play with another dog, but then wanting that dog to go away could have a discomfort related. But of course, everything's individual, isn't it? And there are certain things, everything that we've spoken about today, every physical sign, every behavioral sign, we can't sit here and point to that and go, that's definitely 1000% discomfort, because we need to look at that whole picture. Very quickly then, before we wrap up, Debbie, because I'm sure we could talk for hours about discomfort and pain. Obviously, every dog's an individual. Obviously, we can't sit here and give really specific advice without knowing the dog. But what are some things that if we were looking at our dog and we were thinking there might be some discomfort there, what are some things and some kind of maybe immediate changes we could possibly make? So I'll give an example. I know.
Let me. My biggest bugbear, and I know you were going to say slippery floors, but what is a slippery floor? You know, it could be tiles, it could be lovely waxed floorboards. The biggest one is our laminate. Sure. Yeah, laminate didn't really become popular till the 80s. It came over from Sweden, because when I grew up, many decades ago, it was carpeted, and the only place that didn't have carpet was the kitchen, which was either lino or vinyl. That's how old I am. And the dogs were never allowed in that bit of kitchen anyway. They had their boundaries. But now everywhere seems to be laminate. So you think about how a dog gets traction and they grip, it's all through their paws. There is no grip. And another dynamic dog practitioner, she's done a brilliant video. She put, you know, the little blue bags that you put over your feet when you go to the hospital? Yeah, she put those on her hands and her feet, and she was trying to walk across the laminate floor, and you're slipping and sliding all over the place. So if you're trying to keep your balance, you're tensing, you're putting more stress and tension on those sore bits. So non-slip mats. You can get some really nice ones, pretty ones that go with your decor. But just look at where your dog navigates. I mean, I've got from my back door through to my hallway, it's ceramic tiles. They're not the really shiny ones. They're a bit old now. But there is a long mat that goes from the back door to the carpet. So he doesn't have to try and balance on his old joints. You know, he can just walk straight across. Stairs, be very, very careful with your stairs. For the last 18 months, I've actually blocked the bottom of my stairs off. Now, I've got a big spiral staircase, so trying to get a stair gate to fit, I got you know, the extendable wooden trellises that you'd have out in the garden. I've got one of those at the bottom of the stairs.
Clever.
And it's just a visual barrier for him, because it wasn't so much going up the stairs, because I'd always go up behind him. It was if he wanted to come down in the middle of the night, gravity's going to take over, he's going to fall or stumble. And every little stumble is putting a little tiny stress on not just the joints, but ligaments, skin, muscle. You know, it's just another little nail in that coffin going on. So stair gates, yeah. If you want your dog to sleep with you, perfect. Take them up maybe on a lead, collar and lead. So you're controlling the speed that they're going up. Block off the top of the stairs so they don't go for a little wander in the middle of the night. Think about beds. What's comfortable for your dog? Do they want to sleep on the bed with you? Do they start growling when you're moving around at night? So that's a whole nother subject as well. I mean, I have no problem with dogs sleeping on the bed, but is it safe for you? Is it safe for your dog? So some dogs like beds, you know, as you know, the little whippets, they love those great big donut beds. My dog prefers to sleep outside, but he's not sleeping outside all night. Because remember, some dogs prefer cool
Yeah.
and some dogs prefer warmth.
Mm.
So it's knowing your dog. What does your dog prefer to lie on? Maybe some little steps that you can get going up to your settee to stop the jumping. Because there's still stress as they jump up, but jumping down, I mean, I'm going to round it down. Say your dog's 25 kilos.
Mm.
When they jump out, 4 times their body weight, they will land on their front legs. So over time, it's like a repetitive injury, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah,
Repetitive strain. So that's, what's that, 25, 100, that's 100 kilos every time they're jumping off something, force. So they're hyperextending their wrists every time they jump down. And over time, that's going to cause damage.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest cause of arthritis, which is wear and tear.
Okay.
Yeah. Ramps for your vehicle or steps.
Yeah. Just all these.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I love with this is that there are so many, I think people would have kind of been listening to this, and whether they sit there and they go, oh, you know, I definitely think there might be some discomfort based on this conversation, or I've always had a little niggle. So often we can think that there isn't, apart from going to the vets, going and getting it sorted through medication or physio or hydro, whatever it might be. I think people can sometimes feel stuck and feel powerless, that there's no way that they can adapt their homes or adapt what they're doing. But you've just given 5, 6, 7 really easy adaptations for most people to make that can just take that edge off, right? Can just kind of make that easier for themselves, especially if we're going through that kind of assessment process. No, that's
And it's the same for, you know, it doesn't matter what age your dog is. And if you've got a puppy, definitely have non-slip floors, because everything's all lax and lollopy. You don't want it stretching even more.
No.
So start as you mean to go on. Dogs are with us for such a short time compared to us. They're with us for such a short time. It is our responsibility to be the best caregivers for our dog as we can. And if that means living with a non-slip mat down our hallway for 10, 12 years, so be it. So be it. It's part of it, comes with that.
Yeah.
So I'm getting emotional, but it comes, you know, it's yeah. Anyway, ask me another question before I start blubbing.
I understand, and it's so important, isn't it? Because I think sometimes, as I kind of said at the beginning of this conversation, Debbie, it's we can look at the stress of having a dog who is reactive, who is anxious, who has additional needs, who is fizzy, and with that stress, we can kind of think that we have to go out and train it, right? That we have to go out and do this work and things. But sometimes the simplest answer is just doing these little steps that you've illustrated today, but just building a solid enough plan around, whether that's through a dynamic dog assessment, whatever it might be, from a medical perspective, and kind of taking a look at that, right? And getting that kind of ticked off. Because the thing is we know you cannot out train pain, and you could go to the professional in the world, but if there is discomfort, even if it's slight, that will hold you back from a kind of more stress-free story and a stress-free life with your dog. So
there's things that you can do, because it's not just about, right, I think my dog's in discomfort, I've taken a few videos off to the vet, your vet agrees, let's trial some pain medication. It's up to you to really make a note if there is any behaviour changes, because remember, most medications are only prescribed for 2 weeks under license, but we need them to be a little bit longer to be able to see if there's a difference. So it might be just something that your dog is now sleeping through the night, rather than getting up and keeps you know, we're not expecting all of a sudden our dog is the social butterfly, but we're looking for those little subtle changes. And where was I going with this? Yeah, but it's about what we call the multidisciplinary pain management team. So medication, hydro if appropriate, massage. If you have a massage, it feels good. Imagine how good your dog's going to feel once they start to relax, because again, it takes time for a dog to trust somebody to put their hands on potentially a sore area. But there are obviously massages, that techniques that you can learn yourself, some really basic ones that you can help. I've bought a Photoso red light unit. It's expensive, but I bought that and I can use that. So that's given a bit of pain relief at home for my dog as well. Yeah, because obviously you can't go to the physio, and I'm looking for a physio who can actually come to me. And that's why I am training to be a physio now, because I want to be a mobile physio for these dogs that can't manage the car journeys.
Sure. Makes sense.
Never stop learning. These dogs, they never make you stop learning.
That's amazing, though. And what a journey it sounds like you've been on with that. That's incredible, Debbie. Amazing. Well, look, I think we could talk for hours, right, about this, but we probably should. The people's brains are going to be buzzing with information and kind of thinking about their dogs in a good way, and be kind of considering some of the stuff that we've spoken about. So if people want to find out more about you, Debbie, and kind of what you're about and more about dynamic dog assessments and things like that, where can they find you?
They can find me at Dynamic Pause and Train. Perfect. So Dynamic Pause and Train.
Awesome. And that's on Facebook and that's on the website.
I'm on Facebook. That's my website. My website is .com. Facebook. I am on Instagram, but not that much. I think that's a younger person thing. Sure. I've sort of dabbled on TikTok, but again, a younger person thing. So they're my mainstays, basically, my website and Facebook.
Perfect. Amazing. Well, team, thank you so much for listening to this talk for the Mindful March conference. Debbie, thank you so much for joining us, and we will all chat with you again soon. Bye.
Part 2.
Bye.